One quiet morning, they found a blood-stained letter in an old notebook with only this line: "If you're still keeping that handkerchief, I'm still alive."
I wrote for you, amidst the sound of rain like bullets falling on the old tin roof, in a damp winter afternoon filled with the smell of gunpowder and loneliness. The camp had turned off its lights. The entire unit slept peacefully after a day of exhausting marches, leaving only me, awake with a flickering oil lamp and my own shadow cast silently on the wall like a wordless friend. My dear, I miss you to the point of agony. I miss you so much that when I pulled the pen from my pocket, my hand trembled as it did when I pulled the trigger on my first mission. I felt as if I were writing with the very fingertips that once touched your cheek, instead of just a pen and paper. I want to write this for you. You are the first person who made me want to survive, not just survive to complete the mission. Each day that passes here is cruelly identical. Cold rice, scarce water, the sound of gunfire sometimes near, sometimes far. Everything is as familiar as an old refrain. But just thinking of you changes the color of my entire world. I don't miss you because you're beautiful. I miss you because you are peace. The kind of peace I never believed I deserved. Do you know? Here, when people are wounded, they often call out for their mothers. But if one day I get hit by a bullet, the first name I'd cry out might be yours. My dear, do you still keep the handkerchief I hurriedly tied around your neck before I left? You said it still carried the scent of a soldier's uniform. I, meanwhile, keep the button you sewed on crookedly, tucked in my chest pocket like a talisman. Someone said a man going to war should carry a family photo. But me? Just one line of your handwriting is enough to sustain me for months. I know I'm not good with fancy words, but I know how to miss you. And my longing is strong enough to bend a steel rifle, vast enough to fill every empty space in this barracks. If tomorrow I don't return, don't cry. Live for me instead. Live for the years I won't get to hold your hand through spring again. But if I survive, will you wait? Under the old yellow lamplight, the soldier folded the letter, slipping it into a weathered envelope addressed on the outside. To you, the only one who makes me want to come back. Your letter arrived on a windless afternoon, but I felt my hair lift as if I were standing on the high hill you once described, where the sky is so vast even longing could burst into tears. That afternoon, the postman paused under the tamarind tree and called out loudly, "Letter from the front. Where's Nguyen Lei An?" I stepped out, hands still dusted with flour, my shirt fluttering with the scent of sun and dry firewood. The small letter rested in my palm like a fledgling bird just escaped from its nest. Thin but heavy, so heavy I had to sit on the doorstep to open it. The first line, your slanted handwriting like a soldier's shoulder in the wind. I wrote for you, amidst the sound of rain like bullets falling. I read it as if I'd never known what words were. Each letter carried your breath, as if you were standing before me, holding my hand and saying, "I miss you." My dear, do you still keep the handkerchief I tied around your neck before I left? I touched my neck. No handkerchief, but it felt as if the warmth from your last touch lingered still. I smiled faintly. A smile no one saw, but if anyone passed by, they'd sense a fragrance just blooming. The scent of a girl who'd received a message of love in a scratched-up world. That night, I sat down to write back. The oil lamp flickered. The ink blurred a few lines, but my hand didn't stop. My love. I read your letter 3 times. The first to believe it really arrived. The second to hear your voice in my head. The third to hide my tears within your every word. You said if you were wounded, you'd call my name. And I, each night as I turn in bed, whisper your name like a quiet prayer. Not to call you back, but to ensure this love still lives. You're not good with fancy words, but you're good at missing, you wrote. And me, I'm good at nothing. Except waiting. I folded the letter, poured warm water into a cracked porcelain cup, and sat by the window waiting for dawn. Outside, the wind rustled the tamarind leaves. The moon slipped into thin clouds. But in my heart, the light never faded, because somewhere on a distant battlefield, a soldier was thinking of me, with a heart ready to break for one thing only: love. The letter was sent the next morning. On the envelope, I wrote in my neatest hand, "To you, the one I miss with all that remains after a long day. My dear, your letter reached me like a miracle. I read it 3 times, just as you read mine. But unlike you, after the third time, I couldn't fold it back. My hands clung to the thin paper, as if fearing a stray gust might steal it away. I've lived years in barracks where emotions must fit within commands and discipline. But since meeting you, something in me has broken. Softly, like a thin layer of ice cracking in my heart, revealing warm water beneath. I still remember clearly the first afternoon we met. You stood under the tamarind tree, in a white dress, hair pinned back, arms cradling a stack of school notebooks. Your eyes looked at me unlike anyone else's, not curious, not afraid, not dreamy, just quiet. No one's ever looked at me like that, you know? As if you saw me not as a soldier, but as a man who needed to be loved. That night, back at camp, I couldn't sleep. My comrades teased that I'd been sunstruck by the village teacher. But no, it wasn't the sun. It was you. That gaze made someone accustomed to living on the edge of death suddenly want to live another day just to see it again. I'm used to the sound of guns, helicopters, men screaming in pain. But I'm not used to your voice saying hello. So soft it didn't speak to my ears, but straight to my heart. I'd never loved before, but since meeting you, I began to fear losing someone I hadn't yet dared call mine. You asked why I write letters when I could call. My dear, the signal here is weak, but honestly, even if I could call, I'd still write. Only letters can hold those raw tremors. Only letters let me stay with you longer, line by line, word by word, space by space. If there's a next life, I hope I'm still a soldier, not to fight, but to keep waiting for your letters. And in this life, if I return, I want to marry you on a beautiful early morning. I won't wear my uniform. I want to be a groom, not a soldier anymore. I stop writing here because my eyes sting. Not from smoke, but from missing you. To you, the one who makes even war feel gentle. Month, year, 37 days without a letter. I didn't count, but each morning I wake, a small piece of me goes missing. By today, I know I'm no longer whole. I sat before a blank page from dusk, but near midnight I still hadn't written a word. The pen dried from hesitation. The ink bottle still had ink, but my heart was drained by waiting, drained by worry. You once said you'd write regularly, even if just a few lines. But your letters grew sparse, then stopped. Is the battlefield fiercer now? Are you wounded? Or have you no need to write anymore? I hate myself for thinking these things. But I also hate you, just a little, for planting in me something called hope, then letting it wither day by day like an untended flower. This afternoon I passed the spot where you first held a raincoat over me. Just a short slope, a sudden shower. But you took off your helmet, handed me half a crumpled raincoat, and wrapped the other half around yourself. A soldier who gets his back wet catches a fever easily, I'd said. You laughed and replied, "If my back's wet but you're dry, I'm still warm." That line, I only understood later, not every man could say it with a voice that needed no proof. Now, I just want to see your slanted handwriting again, anytime, anywhere. Whether on a scrap falling from an envelope or a hasty note mixed with supply receipts. As long as it's yours, I'd fall silent to listen. My love, if you still remember me, write. Don't let silence become the final scratch. I don't need flowers, repeated vows, or promises. I just need to know, in your heart, I'm still alive. To you, the one I once thought would never abandon me. Month, year. If this letter reaches you, it means I've made it through. If not, this is my final word, and you'll forever be the last one I remember. My dear, I'm writing on a strip of bandage, with blood mixed into ink. My wrist was grazed, just lightly, but the blood won't stop flowing. The unit is sheltering in a mountain crevice. Outside, the sky is overcast, distant bombs rumble like thunder, but colder. Cold like the thought that I might not see you again. Don't panic. I'm fine, really. It's just, in this moment, Closer to death than ever, I feel the need to write. Not to report, but to tell you something I've never said clearly enough. I love you. Not with eagerness, but with the calm of someone who's faced life and death and knows what's eternal. I'm not afraid to die. A soldier like me, we all learn to get used to that. But one thing makes me restless. I fear you'll think I've forgotten. I haven't. I can't. Even lost in deep forests, without letters, without calls, without anyone mentioning your name, I still hear your voice in every raindrop. Remember when you got mad, called me heartless? You said, "How can you miss me when you don't write a single line for a week?" I just smiled then, unsure how to explain. But if I could go back, I'd hold you tight and say, "It's not that I didn't miss you. I missed you so much I didn't dare write." Because every line I'd write would cut deeper into my longing to be with you. My dear, if this is my last letter, know that. I've loved you with the man left in me after years in this uniform. If it reaches you, I ask one thing. Live. Be happy. With or without me. Because true love doesn't hold someone back. It gives them courage to move forward, even alone. I folded the letter with trembling hands, tied it with a thread from the medic kit, handed it to the young soldier beside me, and said, "If I fall, send this for me. The address is written. Her name's on. But to me, she's home." The letter lay still in the young soldier's backpack, like a second heart, beating faintly amid the roar of gunfire. No one taught me what to do when receiving a letter that might be the last from the one I love. And no one warned me that a letter, just a few pages, could leave me breathless. That afternoon, the sky was heavy like a grieving heart. I was hanging laundry in the yard when the postman came. No name called, no smile, just a quiet step forward to place an envelope in my hand before leaving. The way he handed it, as if he didn't want me to hear bad news through words, as if the letter already knew how to speak its burden. I sat on the wet brick floor, hands shaking as I tore it open. It was written on a white bandage stained reddish-brown. Uneven ink. Letters blurred, as if penned while the writer's heart still pounded with pain, whether from a wound or from longing. I love you. Not with eagerness, but with the calm of someone who's faced life and death. Oh heavens. I don't know how long it had been since I last sobbed aloud. Not out of pity for you, but for the way you loved. Quietly. Silently. Without fanfare. But full of courage. I brought the letter inside, laid it on the table, read it as if it were a will of love. The only thing in this world that makes someone willing to die, just to preserve faith for the one left behind. Live. Be happy. With or without me. You wrote that. But I can't live without knowing if you're still alive. I can't call it peace if every day I must imagine you lying somewhere, amid howling winds and gunfire. I wrote back that night. Hands trembling, tears blurring the words. But I didn't care. Messy handwriting was fine. Misspellings were fine. As long as you could still read it. My love, if that letter truly was your last, then forgive me for not following your words. Because I can't be happy if my heart loses its home. I didn't seal the letter. I left it open, like my heart, ready to welcome you back or to receive news that you never will. And if you're still alive, please write. Not for me, but for you, the man who promised to return, not as a soldier, but as a man afraid to lose a small hand in this vast world. I'd imagined your return 100 times, but in none of those visions did I see myself speechless. That afternoon, the sky was gray. No rain, no sun, just a light breeze through the leaves. I was folding laundry in the yard when I heard a knock on the old wooden door. One knock, not rushed, not frantic, but very gentle, like someone accustomed to waiting, stepping forward without wanting to wake anyone, except my heart. I opened the door and froze. You stood there, thinner, sunburned, neck wrapped in white bandages. But your eyes, those were the eyes of the man who once said, "If you're dry, I'm warm, even if I'm wet." I couldn't say more. My throat tightened. No tears fell. Only my hands, somehow already touching your chest, where a heartbeat trembled like a fledgling bird surviving a great storm. You said nothing either. You held out a handkerchief. The very one I'd worn when you left. But now it was worn, frayed, faded. I kept it for you. I promised to bring it back intact, not knowing I'd end up more tattered than it. I hugged you, like embracing a piece of my youth I thought I'd never see again. You trembled in my arms, not from cold, but from survival. That embrace wasn't like the first, not impulsive, not shy, just one thing, a sigh of relief. My dear, I thought I wouldn't make it back to keep my promise. But it turns out, just thinking of you gave me a reason to breathe one more time. That evening, you sat on the porch watching the rain. I set a teapot on the table, my hands still shaking. You looked at me, eyes brightening. You haven't changed your hairstyle, have you? And you still prefer watching me sit quietly over any song in the world. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay beside you, hand in hand. No talking, no moving, just listening to each other's hearts. I know, some return as different people, but not you. You came back as you, the man who never let love slip away on the battlefield. Thank you for keeping your word, not just surviving, but returning with a heart that still loves as it did the first day. Some nights, you'd wake from a dream, sweating as if still lying in the jungle. I didn't touch you. I just quietly placed my hand on my chest, so you wouldn't feel alone in your fear. After you returned, our little house gained a new breath. But it wasn't always warm. Sometimes cold winds blew from your memories. By day, you smiled, taught the kids to make paper kites, helped me gather firewood, warm water, fixed the old fence from the storm years ago. Everyone said, "He's back, still the kind gentleman." But only I knew. At night, you lived again, somewhere without me. You called out the name of a fallen comrade. You pressed your face into the pillow, breathing hard. Once you mumbled in your sleep, "Don't shoot. There are children there." I listened. Didn't ask. Didn't cry. Just quietly folded the sweat-soaked handkerchiefs. Folded each one like folding away fear. So when you woke, the house was still home. I was still me. And life still lay ahead. Loving you after the war isn't just embracing a man who returned. It's accepting that sometimes I must step back to keep pace with your wounds. Once I placed my hand on your shoulder, lightly, in the dark. You flinched, your eyes wild like a trapped forest animal. I smiled. It's just me, no one else, not the enemy. You gripped my hand. After a long pause, you managed, "I'm sorry." I hugged you. Spoke into your ear, not loud, not a whisper, just enough for your heart to hear. I loved you when you were still on the battlefield. There's no reason I can't love you through these torn dreams. That winter, we burned extra firewood. But what warmed the room wasn't the flame. It was two hands that didn't let go, even in fitful sleep. Loving each other sometimes needs nothing more. Just waking each morning to find the other still there. Alive. Breathing. Smiling. No matter what was dreamed the night before. No wedding dress. No flowers. The bride wore a simple ow dye I sewed myself. The groom in a white shirt, shoulders still trembling as he bowed to my mother. But when you held my hand, I knew. I needed nothing more in this life. We didn't have a grand wedding. Simple. A few new tea sets. A long table borrowed from a neighbor. Chrysanthemums picked from the backyard. And smiles from my mother, Aunt Sal, and the students I once taught. You waited for me at the yard's edge, under the old banyan tree. The wind tousled your hair, and I saw those eyes. The eyes of a man who'd walked through war but kept his heart whole to love me as in the beginning. When the village elder read the blessing, "May you hold hands until the end of your days." I looked at you. You squeezed my hand, saying nothing. But your eyes spoke clearly. I once thought the end was where I'd stop. Now, the end is where you are. People clapped, laughed, took photos. But I remember only one moment. when you leaned close and whispered, "I never dreamed of a home, but since you touched my hand, I began to miss a place to return to." That night, when the village quieted, we sat together, no lights, just moonlight through the window. I rested my head on your shoulder and asked softly, "Did you ever think you wouldn't marry me?" You replied, "No." Because in my heart, our wedding day, came the moment you wrote you'd wait, even if only one last letter remained. Today, we put an end to a promise and began a life. We married not with dresses but with eyes that once lost each other, not with gold rings but with tear-stained letters, not with ceremonies but with longing deep enough to outlast a war. No more letters for me to wait for. No more distances to pour longing onto pages. Now, you're here, beside me, but sometimes I still feel you're far. Every morning you wake before me. You go out back, water the vegetable beds I planted last year. I hear the trickle from a halved plastic bottle falling to the earth like early rain. You once flinched at water sounding like bullets tearing through air, but now, it's the sound that starts your day. You don't write letters anymore, but you write in small daily acts. A note, "I left hot water ready. Eat breakfast." A chalk mark on the blackboard, "Wear a jacket this afternoon." A handful of wildflowers in a chipped porcelain cup. "I passed by and thought they looked like your smile when you sleep." We love each other now, not with grand gestures, but with tiny moments like these. I keep your scraps of paper, like holding onto a trace of when we loved through letters. That evening, as you read by the oil lamp, I watched you silently. I saw you breathe lightly, run your finger along your nose when deep in thought, bite your lip at a sad passage. And I realized, even beside each other, I must learn you anew, bit by bit, because the you after war is different, gentler, quieter, with depths I can no longer name. Once you held my hand in the crowded village market. Surprised, I asked, "You been holding my hand in public lately?" You just smiled. "I once thought I'd never have this chance again, so now, whenever I can, I want to hold you clearly." Loving in peacetime, I've learned to slow down. No rush, no haste, just waking each morning to see the one beside me still breathing, still alive, still smiling at the first sunlight. That's enough. At first, you only forgot where you put the keys, then forgot mealtimes. One day, you looked at me long, knowing me, but unable to name me. I smiled. But inside, I crumbled like a house without pillars. It came on a cloudy morning. A chick ran loose outside, chirping. I asked you to catch it for its mother. You stood, walked to the door, then turned back, confused. "Dear, since when did we keep chickens?" A light question, your voice unchanged. But I froze. Because you built that coop, fed them grain, once said, "When we have kids, I'll teach them to raise chickens like their dad." From that day, I began noting every detail. One day you asked, "How long have we been married?" I smiled, took your hand, answered like reciting a memorized poem. 3 years, 6 months, 11 days. On our wedding day, I wore an ivory dye. You a wrinkled shirt from a 3-hour ride from the field hospital. I'll remember it forever. You smiled too. But your eyes weren't as clear as before. Something clouded them, a confusion you couldn't name. Then another day, as I brought water, you sat on the step, holding a note I wrote years ago, voice soft. "Who are you?" My heart plummeted, shattering into 100 pieces, but I kept my tone light. "I'm the one you wrote to every night, the one you wanted to marry the moment you got leave, the one you promised never to forget, even if the world forgot you. My love, if memory is a book fading away, I'll rewrite every page, even with tears, even if each day leaves just one line." The doctor said it's a mild after effect of a head wound. It might heal, might not. Sometimes a fleeting lapse, sometimes a vast erasure in your mind. I started reading our old letters to you. Each night, instead of holding hands to sleep, I'd sit and tell stories. When you wrote from the mountain pass, you said, "If you're dry, I'm warm even if I'm wet." You smiled, nodded. "Sounds familiar. Who said that?" The man who loved me like tomorrow was the end. One evening, you looked at me long, then whispered, "You seem so familiar, but I'm scared you'll leave if I can't remember your name." I placed my hand on your cheek, gently. "From today, I'll remind you, I'm Anne. And you called my name even in dreams with no one else. If you lose your memory, I'll become your memory. If you forget me, I'll love you from the start again. And if one day you see me as a stranger, I'll ask to be the stranger who loves you once more." That month, autumn began. Banyan leaves fell in the yard, one by one, golden and solitary. I felt cold waking early, and you slept less lately. You stopped asking, "Who are you?" But you hadn't called my name since your memory started slipping. You lived with me like a kind, familiar stranger, but still not me. Still, I cooked breakfast as always, warmed the bed each night, and every time I handed you warm water, I'd say, "I'm Anne, you're Anne." Not to remind, just to plant a seed of memory in some parched corner of your mind. One afternoon, I cleaned out the old letter chest. Your first letter to me, still creased, paper slightly yellowed. I took it to the yard, sat reading in the sun. You were sawing bamboo for a trellis. Hearing me read, you paused. Your gaze turned, like something clicked. I'd thought in this life I'd only write letters to report my death. But then I met you. I stopped there, startled, because you dropped the saw, walked slowly toward me. You looked at me, at the letter, at my wide, emotional eyes. That line, I wrote it. I nodded, throat tight. Back then, it was raining, and I was in camp, right? I couldn't nod again, just clutched your sleeve. And then, you leaned down, slow, clear, called my name. Anne. One word, just one. But it felt like someone summoned back my first spring after years adrift. Like your fingers touched the hem of time again. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay watching you, fearing tomorrow those eyes might turn distant again. You held my hand, as always, but this time leaned close and whispered, "I'm not sure I'll always remember you. But if I forget, don't leave. Something small will call me back." In the days after, your memory flickered. Some days you called me teacher, some sister, some nothing at all. But each time I read a letter or mentioned early rain or played an old tune you hummed, you'd smile, eyes misty, and softly say, "Anne, oh." Loving someone who's forgotten you is learning to love them anew each day. Loving without expecting a timely return. Standing silently, waiting for a sleeping memory to wake and call you back as it did the first time. You left before dawn. The room still held the scent of tea and your faint breathing from last night. But this morning, when I woke, your side was empty, no heartbeat beside me. I didn't cry. Maybe I'd run out of tears since you first forgot my name, or maybe I'd learned to let pain flow inward, into a quiet sediment. You left as you lived, silent, humble, troubling no one. I sat by you long, looked at your face, the face I loved since I was a girl under the tamarind, holding notebooks, watching a young soldier pass. That face now etched with wrinkles, gray hair, peaceful like a letter folded one last time. I placed this letter in your hand. Your hand. Once trembling as it wrote on bloodied bandages, once gripping mine through hazy dreams, now soft, strength gone. But I believe somewhere in these lines you still hear me. The letter read, "My love, I don't know if I have enough words to say goodbye, but I know I've had enough love to harbor no regrets. You're gone, but not lost. You're here, and every morning I still wake to brew tea, in every poem I reread in autumn, in every leaf falling on the porch like the day you first called my name again. They say memory fades, but true love doesn't. It turns into wind, an old shirt scent, the chirp of birds at dawn. I'll keep living, not to forget you, but to hold you in the gentlest way, and if one day in another place, if there's memory, please once more call my name, because I'm still the one you promised. If you're dry, I'm warm even if I'm wet. Sleep well, my love." I folded the letter, tucked it into your hand, covered you with the blanket you used on cold mornings. No crying. Just a sacred silence. Outside, spring was coming. The tamarind hill bloomed its first, flowers. And I knew, somewhere, you were writing another letter. But this time, from the other side of memory. Our love began with a letter, and ended with a letter. But what lay between was a lifetime. Those who love deeply once carry it forever, whether the other still lives or rests beneath green grass, because true love doesn't need presents to exist. Day 7. After the farewell, I woke early. Still brewed tea for two, poured 2 cups, drank both quietly. No one talks to me anymore. But I still answer the questions you repeated in your last year. What's your name? I'm the one who loved you from your first letter. Day 14. The tamarind at the gate shed all its leaves. Bare branches, cool weather. I found a shirt you wore on your first leave, neatly folded, buttons fastened, smelling of old sun. I didn't wash it. Left it as is. Some things grow dearer with age, like your words. I'm not good with fancy words, but I'm good at missing. Day 21. A neighbor girl asked, "Grandma, where'd Grandpa go?" I said, "He's writing me a letter, a bit longer this time." She grinned, believing it. I smiled too. Sometimes a child's faith is all that keeps an adult's alive. Day 30. Today I rewrote all the old letters by hand. No printing, no typing, every line, word, comma, as if it could resurrect a piece of memory. And a way to keep living. Sometimes my hand shook, tears blurred the page, but I kept writing. Because I promised, if you forget, I'll remember for you. Day 100. I dreamed you returned. Not old, not in pain. Just standing on the porch under the banyan smiling. Still writing letters? Yes, but not sending them anywhere. No matter, I can still read them. I woke startled, sky still dark. I opened the door, sat on the step, clutching your old handkerchief. Moon dim. Wind cold through the eaves. But I felt warm. Truly warm. Perhaps not everyone who leaves is gone. Some stay, in memory, in scent, in the warmth on a sleeve, in longing that never fades. And if you wrote from the other side of life, I'm sure you'd say, to you, the one I'd love again from the start, if there's a next life. If you read this, it means I've gone farther than war zones, farther than where my memory once lost you. But I believe this letter still reaches you. Because love needs no sender, no stamp. My on, I'm sorry for leaving while you were warming water, folding blankets, keeping the habit of setting out 2 pairs of chopsticks. I'm sorry I couldn't call your name one last time, but you know that morning, in my final hazy dream, I saw you, the girl in a white owl dye, under the tamarind, holding my first letter. You smiled, no tears, no questions, just looked at me long, like the day you nodded to a soldier returning with nothing but a scarred heart. I stepped forward to hug you, but then wind swept through, and I knew it was time to go. I took nothing, except your letters. Lines blurred with ink, but not with love. I don't remember much, but 3 things. Even death can't erase. 1, your name is Anne. 2, you're my home. 3, if there's a next life, I'll write to you again, from the first time, with all my life. Anne, dear, it's peaceful here. No bombs, no longing, no forgetting. Just breezes carrying the scent of fresh grass and laughter of those who loved deeply enough to never fully die. Sometimes I meet old comrades. They talk of their loves. One asked, "Who do you miss most?" I said, I don't recall her face clearly, but I remember the feeling. The feeling of touching the hand of the one I promised. If you're dry, I'm warm, even if I'm wet. Don't cry for me. Don't cling to sorrow. Live on, Anne. Let the house sing again. Wear new clothes. Curl your hair if you want. And if one day you meet someone who makes you smile like I did, let your heart live again. No more waiting for letters. From now on, every breeze across your shoulder, every night rain on the tin roof, every tamarind bloom at season's start, they're all my letters. Love you. Forever. The soldier who wrote with blood and loved with all the life he had left. I lived the rest of my days as you wished. And now, as my final sleep closes, I see myself crossing an old field, where you wait. That morning, the sky was clear. No more wrinkles on my brow. No more sunken eyes from nights awaiting letters. I walked as a young girl again. No burdens, no illness, no shadow of time. Before me stretched a field, rice green, as if harvest never came. A man stood beneath the sky, back straight, white shirt, hair black again. He turned and called, "Anne?" One word, and all the old rains, torn letters, long nights surged like waves, then dissolved, leaving only a lightness in my chest. I didn't need to ask who he was. I didn't check for scars on his hands or the look of someone who'd forgotten. I knew. I recognized you instantly, as my heart never dropped a beat for you. I ran to you, not fast, not slow. You opened your arms, caught me like a lost piece of yourself too long astray. And when I reached that embrace, you held me tight, whispering, "This time, I won't forget. Never. This time, I'll write you letters every day, no paper needed, just you here." Above, tamarinds bloomed out of season. Purple petals drifted in a windless sky. No one cried, no one grieved, no one hurt. Just two who loved across memory and death, now sitting together, peaceful as children who never grew up. If there's a next life, don't let us lose each other too long. Dear friend, here it is, the true final chapter. No more war, no more muddled memory, no more waiting. Just pure love, kept in a place beyond time. If you'd like, I can. Publish this novel fully, helping you divide chapters, title it, design a cover, add a dedication. Write an epilogue. Their child, or someone finding these letters years later to uncover this love. Or simply, help you keep this story as a precious gem, still, profound, eternal. I found the old wooden box while clearing my mother's room. Inside were over 70 letters, most yellowed, ink faded with time. Yet strangely, each time I opened one, my heart beat as if hearing voices call through the wind. I never heard my parents say, "I love you," in front of me. They lived simply. Dad brewed tea at dawn. Mom always wore a scarf to gather forest greens. They'd dry clothes together on the porch at noon. No, "I love you." No, "I miss you." No kisses. But I knew they were the deepest lovers I'd ever seen. And today, opening that wooden box, I understood why. The first letter Mom wrote as a young girl. "My love, I miss you like something never close enough to touch, yet never far enough to forget." The 17th, Dad wrote in blood and ink on a medical bandage. "If this reaches you, I've survived." The last was Mom's. No date. Unsent. Just folded, placed by Dad's photo frame. "My dear, I'm still here, even if you no longer remember my name. And if one day, beyond both realms, we meet again, love me anew from the start." I read each letter like tracing my own roots. I understood why Mom lit candles when tamarinds bloomed. I understood why Dad, memory fading, still woke asking, "Where's Anne?" Though she sat right there, holding his hand as always. I didn't cry, I just felt grateful to be born of such a love begun with letters, survived war, lost memory but not heart, parted but never sundered. Today, I recopied those letters, not to tell the world but for my child, and those after, to know love needn't be perfect, just true. Needn't last forever, just never fall away. I lit incense, placed the wooden box atop the old cabinet, so when I miss them, I can open it, reread the letters, of a soldier who loved with blood, and a wife who wrote until her final day. I'm Lum, 23, born in a house without Wi-Fi, but full of handwritten letters. I returned to the countryside one pale autumn. Grandma had just passed. She lived to 91. They said she went while folding an old woolen scarf. No one knew what it was, but I did. I'd seen her cry holding it. Grandma was the last in the village to write letters, though she sent them to no one. Each morning she sat at a small wooden table, wrote in purple ink, folded them, stored them in a wooden box under the altar. I cleaned the house per her wishes. The silence felt like time had paused here. I found the letterbox. Inside, over 70 letters. Some from 1954, others from 2001, some undated, no beginnings or ends, as if written beyond time's witness. I read, each one, like peeling layers of a forgotten memory. One letter stopped me. My love, I just brewed tea. But now I pour only one cup. Drink your share somewhere, okay? I'll sit here, keeping your part warm in my heart. I asked Mom. She stayed silent long, then handed me an old photo. A soldier in green, arm bandaged, beside a girl in a white dye. Both looked afar, not at the camera, as if they knew the photo would fade, but not the love. Days later, I decided to transcribe Grandma's letters into a manuscript. I titled it, Letters to Her and to All Who Loved to the End. I don't know if anyone will read it. Don't know if anyone believes a handwritten letter can still pierce a heart in this age. But I believe, because I saw Grandma live a life for it. Now, I live in the city. But every March 10th, Grandpa's death day, I return. I sit on the old porch, pour 2 cups of tea, tilt one toward the wind, then read aloud one of her letters. Not for anyone, just to let that love breathe on among those no longer here. You're the flesh and blood of 2 who loved beyond death. So if you ever love someone, love like your grandparents. Love with every word. Love in silence. Love until nothing remains but a vow. If you're dry, I'm warm, even if I'm wet. Some aren't the main characters, but carry the rest of a love story. I'm Trine. That day, I was Huang's comrade. The battalion called him the blood letter writer, while I was just the soldier nearby, witness, silent, keeper of a letter no one knew. In 1969, during the tense fight at Cold Forest Pass, Huang was wounded. Blood seeped from his left shoulder, yet with his other hand, he pulled a notebook from his pack, tore a bandage, dipped it in ink and blood, wrote. I asked, "What are you writing now?" He just smiled. If I don't write, tomorrow might be too late. Huang didn't die, but he collapsed. I carried him 4 kilometers out of the bombardment zone. That letter, blood-stained, blurred, I folded, kept in my chest pocket 7 days before delivering it to Anne, a girl I'd never met, but whose name I'd heard 100 times in his delirious calls. Years passed. I lived. Huang lived. We each went our way. I never married. He, as if fated, returned to Anne, from the first letter to the final handkerchief. Decades later, I heard his memory faded. He remembered no one, only Anne's name. I didn't visit, didn't dare. I feared seeing that love in the misty eyes of an old soldier. I'd never dare love again. When I learned both had passed, I quietly returned to their old house. Silvered tiles, cracked steps, paper flowers climbing dry earth. No one greeted me, but I saw them, in sunstreaks on the walls. I sat on the old bamboo chair, pulled from my chest a letter kept over half a century. The second one Huang asked me to hold. She's weak-hearted. Don't send it if I don't survive. I opened it. Words remained. Ink faint, but not the heart. And if you read this, I didn't die. And if I didn't die, I'll surely marry you. No wedding dress, no gifts, just your nod. That's enough for a lifetime. I folded it, lit a cigarette, looked skyward. Tamarinds bloomed purple. Cool breeze. I smiled. A smile of an outsider to their lives, yet holder of a piece of their soul. Then I left quietly. Took nothing, left nothing. Only silently vowed, Huang, rest easy. I'll tell your story to the young soldiers later. So they know, some soldiers fought not just to fight, but to return. After you left, I no longer heard wind on the roof. Or maybe it still blows, just missing someone. For me to name each time it passes. I'm Anne, that girl, that wife, the one who stayed. It's been over 20 years since you passed. The house remains. Paper flowers still climb the window frame. The chipped porcelain teacup sits in its old spot. Only now I don't brew 2 cups. One, enough for one to remember. Each morning I wake early, wipe the table, Open the door, rest my hand on the bamboo chair you once sat in. My hand feels nothing, but my heart recalls the shape of yours there. I'm old now, very old. Memory falls like late-season tamarind blooms. Some days, I call my grandchild by the wrong name. Some days, I forget where the keys are. But I've never forgotten your name, nor the way you wrote Anne, slanted, trembling, but never wrong. I rewrite letters to you each time it rains. I don't send them, just fold them, place them in the wooden box. Once, a grandchild asked, "Who are you writing to, Grandma?" I just smiled. To the one who lived in my heart. My dear, if you can still read somewhere, I'd still say, I remember the first time you held my hand under the tamarind, your eyes shaking like you were writing a will. Not confessing, I remember you forgot my name, but never how to look at me as if I were the only one worth returning to. When people ask, do you regret anything? I say no, because I had a love others only dream of. A man who wrote to me even unsure he'd live to send it. And a husband who, later, though forgetting all, always remembered to hold my hand when I fell silent. Now I wish for nothing more. Only that when I close my eyes, someone places one of your old letters on my chest, not to read, but so I can carry that love to the other side and write the letters I didn't finish. We began with a wait, lived through seasons of longing. Now, I follow you with one last breath. Light, but enough to bring a lifetime of love back. No more pain, no more distance, just two old souls, recognizing each other with a gentle touch of wind. Somewhere, in a nameless field, where the sky knows no dusk or dawn, a man sits on the steps of a small house. His hand traces a faded handkerchief. His eyes gaze far, not searching, just waiting. And he calls softly, not loud, not trembling, as if his heart spoke the name without his lips moving. And then, from a misty path, a woman approaches. No cane, no shadow, no ailment. Hair loose over her shoulders. Aodai swaying quietly in the breeze. Her eyes clear, gentle, brimming with light only one who's waited a lifetime could carry. She stops a few steps away. No embrace. No tears. Just a look. Because that look is of two who lost each other long, many times, through memory, war, death, and now, finally, see each other without fear of tomorrow's parting. I remember, he says, everything. It's okay, I never forgot. They sit together on an imagined bamboo chair. No talk of death, no mention of time. Here, they're young again, and will be forever. My love, we don't need letters anymore, do we? No, but if you want, I'll still write. Only now. Instead of ink and paper, I'll write with afternoons, clouds, and the breeze across your shoulders each morning. Above an endless sky, tamarinds begin to fall. Out of season, beyond rules. Just a sign. Two have found each other. That love, once buried in memory, survived through letters, now rewritten in the purest presence. No need for memory, no need for words, just each other. And if someone strays there, they'd see only two sitting still, hands clasped, eyes toward the wind, between them a breath stretching unbroken, as if separation never was.